You know, time is our most valuable resource, of course. And with all the options, I always say this. I say this about people that I encounter in public. I say this about people who have watched and consumed my content over the years. I'm sure you feel the same way about people who watch and consume your content or who even engage with you on social media. Um, there are a lot of options for people with their time. A lot of things people can watch, a lot of people things people can listen to, um, people can follow, and I'm flattered because it's the greatest compliment that we can receive when anybody decides to take time out of their day, their precious time out of their day, to watch us on Peacock Live, subscribe and watch us on YouTube, listen to us on Sirius XM Channel 85 NBC Sports Audio, follow us at Holly and Smith on all your various social media platforms, or listen to this podcast wherever you get your podcast. When people determine that that's how they want to spend their time, there's not a greater compliment that they can give us. And furthermore, the reason I love to respond to and receive everybody's comments is because you're not just watching, but then you're making a conscious decision to write a thought. Good, bad, indifferent. Even if you're telling us how awful we are, even if you're telling us how much you love us, even if you're telling us how stupid we are, what an idiotic take Michael just had, Michael Smith, idiotic take Michael just had, or what a brilliant and thoughtful and insightful and nuanced conversation we just had, whatever it is, I just think it's really cool for somebody to just decide, hey, I got something to say and I'm gonna take the time to write it. So I start this show off by saying thank you for your comments. Thank you for your consumption. Thank you for supporting this here show. And with that, Natalie, who's in charge of looking at these comments, because I'm sensitive, so I don't like looking at the comments. Natalie goes and she figures out the ones that we're gonna address, because she's among many hats that she wears, she's our social media producer. So Natalie, take it away.
Yeah, we had some great conversations this week, and there were two topics that really our audience gave us a lot of feedback on, and that was the many different variations of the MVP discussion we had, and also Eric Bieniemy. So why don't we just get right into it and see what they're talking about?
Now, I hope you didn't pick out all the people agreeing with you. Did you just? It's weird. Let me see who like what I had to say.
So I did not go that route, and I mean,
Okay.
my take is polarizing. So there were lots of people not agreeing with me. I was actually more shocked at the number of people who did, to be honest. So it was like it was just a polarizing sort of discussion.
It
But
always is.
And it always is. And I feel like the same stuff comes up every year. But, I would say to the point that I've been making in terms of where I feel like there's been a shift in the MVP, the way the voting is occurring. I think there's been a shift since Russ. I know you disagree with me on that, but I do. And I think there is a focus more on sort of the excellence an individual player is doing on his team, not regardless of the standings, but the standings don't seem to be having as much weight. So you're putting up this amazing double season. You're putting up a lot of just incredible stats. There seems to be a more willingness to award it to players like that. And so that's why I picked the comments that I had. Can you put them back up on the screen? Because one of the comments was basically someone asking, maybe we just need to have like a most outstanding player and then also an MVP. And this is a topic that has come up before. And then there was another one that I thought was a really interesting suggestion. And it said the regular season and finals MVP should be unified and then awarded at the beginning of the following season. And that way it captures kind of what I'm saying about the postseason and what people are saying about the regular season award. So I don't think I've ever heard that. I've heard the first one, but I thought this might be something that, if we're going to be going to this approach, because what I feel like what happens with Jokic is people keep reminding us, look at what he's doing. His season's incredible. And it is incredible. But like I said in my feed, having the best stats or being the best player doesn't necessarily mean you're most valuable. And what I mean by that is, like, it doesn't mean that you have more value to your team than some of the other players whose stats look different. You know, they're all putting up stats, but to me, that's a way to still honor someone who's having an amazing season, but also to continue to also honor another player with MVP. And whether Jokic gets the MVP and it's another player who gets the most outstanding, but I just think that this is an idea that I've seen before, but maybe should be given more consideration.
So I appreciate the suggestions. I appreciate the solutions, but I don't think there's a problem here. I don't think that there's something that's broken and needs to be fixed. In fact, I think it's working perfectly. And the reason it's working perfectly is because there's so much passion year in and year out about MVP. The MVP debate starts a week into the season, damn near. And I know it frustrates a lot of people such as yourself when we try to call the race before it's finished, but it's a topic that carries NBA conversation throughout the entire regular season and beyond, if it's a controversial selection or an unpopular selection. So I don't think it's broken at all, so I don't think we need to fix it. I get that people want the postseason to be recognized as part of this process, but that's what Finals MVP is for. And some would argue that Finals MVP is more prestigious than regular season MVP.
That's a new thing.
I'm not one of those people, but I'm saying some people believe.
That's new. The Finals MVP was never a legacy award. That's only a recent thing. It was sort of with Kobe, and it was really harped on with Steph. It was never a thing before. You talked about a player's MVP.
It's always been a legacy award because Finals MVP is synonymous with championships. The greatest players in NBA history all have one or more Finals MVPs. The reason it was a thing with Steph, and I wasn't one of these people, Natalie, so don't jump on me, but the reason it was a thing with Steph is because how does somebody this great, for whatever reason, not have Finals MVP? It was such a glaring hole on his resume because of his all-time greatness. That was the one, like Magic, Michael, Bird, everybody all had Finals MVP, and here's Steph without it. He arguably should have already had one. That's the only reason why it was a legacy thing with Steph.
I feel but strongly it's always about been. It.
Okay, be my guest.
Sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted you.
You're not actually my guest. You're my co-host. Go right ahead.
When I'm saying it didn't hold the same level of prestige, and this is no disrespect to some of the players that have won, but Paul Pierce, Chauncey Billups, Tony Parker, James.
Can you stop with Paul Pierce? Can you stop with Paul Pierce real quick? Sure. We'll go back and forth. When Paul Pierce was Finals MVP, he declared himself the best player in the world. The best player in the world, unofficial, I know it's a joke, but I'm serious. The unofficial title of best player in the world was often manifested in a Finals MVP award. Those players, remember when Dwayne Wade brought the Heat back against the Mavericks? LeBron was the best player at the time, but Dwayne Wade had a case as best player in the world because he did it on the biggest stage. That Giannis, when he was MVP back-to-back years, when Giannis won Finals MVP, that's when he laid claim to best player in the world. So I'm not saying Finals MVPs have always been the greatest players of all time. No, there are exceptions. Andre Iguodala, Chauncey Billups, so on and so forth. Many exceptions. Cedric Maxwell, so on and so forth. It's about that series. But typically, your Finals MVPs and the best player in the game are often one and the same.
The Giannis, the FMVP thing was after Steph. So that's why, that, like I said, it was sort of there with Kobe, even though that wasn't the explicit debate because it was, he can't win without Shaq. So it was sort of underlying and inherent. And that's why I kind of always liken Steph to Kobe, because I feel like they went through similar things when he played with Shaq and people trying to downplay Kobe, and then when Steph played with Kevin Durant, even though he had won before Kevin Durant got there, trying to downplay him. But it's just, it was prestige because they won the championship, not because of the Finals MVP. And I think
they usually went hand in hand. It was rare. Jordan got a bunch of Finals MVPs. Kareem, Magic, the greatest player. It's an exception when the best player on the best team or the best player in the league does not receive Finals MVP. That is rare. LeBron never won a championship and not Finals MVP, for example. But back to these suggestions. The problem is the subjectivity involved. And it's not even a problem. I say problem, it's not really a problem. However you define most valuable, however you define outstanding player of the year, you're never going to remove the subjectivity because, as I've said and as you just said, everybody's got stats, which is where the narrative comes in. So it's all going to be a matter of opinion, whether you award it at the end of the regular season or whether you award it at the beginning of the next season. It's all going to be a matter of opinion. My issue with combining them, though, is I do think the regular season, like if we really don't want the regular season to matter, if we want to put the nail in the coffin for the regular season, then we eliminate a regular season award. As long as the regular season is 82 games and it matters, there should be a regular season award, and the Finals MVP will take care of itself when ultimately the best team, led by the best player, hoists the championship.
Okay, well, I'll just say this last thing. I feel like the regular season is starting to matter less and less. And I don't think there's an issue with the MVP now, but I think it's trending in a certain direction, which is why I think this conversation about outstanding and an MVP.
What direction is that trending to?
To much more focus on like the stats you're putting up and much less about you being at the top of the standings. I feel like we've had like a few outliers and it's going more in that direction. We'll see if it continues.
Jokic is still at the top of the West. So
yes, we don't have to worry about that. Year when they were the 6th seed.
He wasn't, and Russ was not. No, right. There have been 2 exceptions in recent memory, but for the most part, standings have mattered. But I hear your concern, and I appreciate your concern. What was the other topic? You said Eric Bieniemy. A lot of people had comments on Eric Bieniemy. Give me a sampling of those, please.
Yeah. So with Eric Bieniemy, me included, I got up here and, I joined the conversation with you and Jim Trotter and Mike Jones. And I was just saying like, look, I just don't like this move and he shouldn't have to do this. And there was a lot of, arguments in that direction. But you actually were saying the reasons why it could be good for him. And it's just not a discussion point that I'm hearing as much. So the 2 comments sort of reflected that. But one of the comments, the first one said that we're making an assumption that Kansas City wanted Eric Bieniemy back. And I thought that was just interesting because we are sort of making that assumption. And then the other one is about the fact that this will be good for him. They're kind of predicting he's going to end up as the coach of the Saints. But I think more importantly, they're saying that this is going to make him better. And I think what's so important about what you said, Mike, in this comment is that it will, right? He's going to get to call plays. And anytime you're gaining more experience, that's always going to make you better. So that will be a good thing. I think what our issue is that we see a number of coaches who don't have to do that. They didn't have the experience and they can still get the job. And for us, it seems unfair that he has to do that to maybe get a head coaching job.
Especially his predecessors under Andy Reid. Look, we know that the goalpost is going to be moved for us. We know that we have to be twice as good. But like I said to you off camera the other day, in EB's case, he'll be twice good. You already got to be twice as good, but now he can be twice good and show what he has. Again, he shouldn't have to. But what's the alternative? Just to sit back and fold your arms and to say, all right, well, I ain't working no more. Well, now he gets to go somewhere, run the show on that side of the ball. And as we saw yesterday, and we'll hear from shortly, he got to show his head coach chops, his head coach qualifications under fire right off the bat.
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.